everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 44 of Monster, and I was left with a lot of questions. After last episode, I felt kind of bad, because in the prior episode, in the intro, I was dogging people for supporting Johan and being like, well, now, here's all the things that Johan's done. Well, now I feel kind of sheepish, because Nina's maybe doing the same things, and I'm like, well, why are we doing this? So I just don't know. I mean, I see, I guess with Tenma, my biggest thing is that we've seen Tenma's psyche and we've been following Tenma for most of the story. So we know how Tenma feels about things. We know his morals. We know everything about him and his morals. And we know how he's been as a character. And Nina has been a lot more mysterious. We've seen Nina, but we haven't really gotten to know Nina like we have Tenma. And so when Tenma does things, we kind of understand where they're coming from. But with Nina, I had this idea about her character, and now she's doing things that are making me question everything about her. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why is this happening now? And so I'm very curious what we're going to get with her character. Why is she doing the things that she's doing? Has she always had this capability within her? I mean, the theme is everyone has a monster inside of them. It just is whether it comes out or not, and if we choose to let it out or not, and other themes as well. But Nina's thrown me for a loop. I'm not gonna lie. Nina has thrown me for a loop, and I blame the book. I blame that bitch with that bitch with no name. And Johan. So I don't know. I'm so curious. I had this thought the other day of like, what if Johan like turns out to be this sympathetic character and we're like, wait a minute, what? And then everyone else turns out to be the monster, and it's like, what do we do with that? So at this point, the story is going in directions I didn't see it going, and I'm intrigued. I don't know what to think about it, but I'm intrigued. I only have one comment to talk about before we start the episode, and that is Death to Boredom. Talked about how Grimmer, I really like the way that they worded this. Grimmer, back in episode 41, has, he's like Lunge in that he's blinded by the desire to be right, and like Tenma in that he's blinded by responsibility. That's been, blinded by responsibility is the phrase that I've been looking for. So thank you, Death to Boredom, because I've been trying to describe like Tenma, he has this innocence to him, but he also feels so, it's not necessarily guilt, but it's blinded by responsibility. He thinks he has to take responsibility for this thing that was maybe not even within his control, right? Which granted, he did save Johan, but beyond that, it's kind of like death of an author. Once you create something and you put it out in the world, you no longer really have authority or, control over how it turns out. So it's kind of like one of those things that Tenma saved this person, but you can't tell how they're going to turn out just because you saved them, right? So, but I like the idea that Grimmer, he wants to be right. He very much, he seems very unwilling to move in his beliefs, which is interesting, but he also has this responsibility that I feel is connected to his son. But I want to know, I'm torn as well, because I want to know Grimmer backstory, but usually when you find out the backstory of a character, they die, so I don't want to know. So I'm like, I don't want to know Grimmer's backstory if he's going to die in that episode. We've only had Grimmer for like 3 episodes, because last episode was all about Detective Suk. So I'm like, I don't really want Grimmer to go yet. We were just introduced to him. I want him to stick around. I want Grimmer to be a long haul character like Dieter. I want him to stick around, have things to do. But I don't know what we're going to do with this character. His character was not present at all last episode, which after all the stuff he went through, maybe that's a good thing. But we've met Detective Suk, who's interesting. He seems like a Tenma prototype, only he's Detective Tenma. And he's realized that the people he looked up to his whole life are corrupt. We've seen that song and dance. And we've seen the song and dance of a twin killing them. So, okay. All right. I feel like with this, though, it's a lot more obvious. Like with Johan, there's always been the question of, was it Johan poisoning the doctors or was it something else? Here, it seems much more like, no, it was Nina, unless it was someone else. I can't imagine who, but this show has left me kind of in this state of, I know what's going on, but I'm stumped by some decisions that have been happening. And I feel like the last episode, there were pieces that were missing from the narrative that will eventually show back up and reveal themselves. And when they do, and it all comes together, we're just going to go like that, right? Like, just like that. So yeah, but I don't know what to expect, y'all. I really don't. And I'm excited, but we're just gonna have to see what happens. So yeah, so I'm really excited, y'all. I hope you all are too, but I can't wait to find out what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna dive right into this episode and see for ourselves. So we are gonna start episode 44 of Monster, and we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and I'm gonna turn my sound up, and let's go. Man, I bet that you all were watching last episode as I went into my big hour-long tangent about Nina and were like, oh, Romania, you sweet, sweet summer child! You thought he couldn't dress in drag? It's Johan. Well, in other news, I feel a lot better about Nina's character. Because I was like, why are we having all these parallels? I was like, the candies and the smile and the like, when you feel warm and fuzzy around Johan, like you could tell him anything. And I was like, man, Nina's becoming Johan. It's Nina becoming the monster. But now it's no. Oh my God, Johan is dressing up as Anna Liebert. It should have been a red flag whenever Johan said his name was Anna Liebert, because Johan would not have used Nina Fortner, right? Would not have used that. Nina's been calling herself that because of her step-parents that she loved. Johan did not love them, would not have cared. So that should have been a red flag. And then the whole thing about, not having a name, they're like, I don't know my real name. All I know. But when they said the 3 frogs in Sea Dock Bridge, I was like, well, that's what Nina knows, but that's also apparently what Johan knows as well. And that Schubert knew. So, oh my God. So yeah, we'll talk about the 3 frogs and all that, but oh my God, you talk about identity crisis. Oh my God. The thing about it is, yeah, I'm sure there were some reactors that figured out instantly. I'm sure some reactors were like, oh, well, Nina's acting like Johan. What if it's Johan in disguise? I'm sure there's some reactors that like that got it. They were like, figured it out. No, not me, not Romania. Romania's hook, line, and sinker questioning Nina's entire morality and wondering if she'd gone off the deep end in chasing after Johan. But no, it is Johan. That explains why we didn't see Dieter, because Dieter's not with Johan. That explains so much. Everything all makes sense now. Only now I'm freaking terrified but here's the thing. I'm not terrified for Grimmer anymore. I'm terrified for Suk. And I wonder if Grimmer figured out that Johan was onto him and he's like, I got to get rid of this key because I don't want to be the one caught with it. So let's break this down. Oh my gosh. You know what? I was starting to feel gaslit a little bit, because the commenter in the last reaction was like, you shouldn't feel so bad for Johan. He's not so bad of a guy. He has some good ideas. Did you see his face in the last 10 seconds of that episode? That is not a face of innocence. That is a mad Joker villain face. I'm sorry. No. And the fact that they shot Anna in the head, done. The fact that Petrov was killed, done. All makes sense. The poison police chiefs, done. All makes sense as well. Everything makes sense. And I'm like, okay. Well, on the one hand, I'm glad that solves many of my questions. On the other hand, I'm even more terrified than I was before, because that means that Anna is probably not there. Although that brings up some interesting questions. So let's just bring up Johan. And just put him on up here. Double darkness. Oh my God. You could have done so many innuendos and many things in darkness, but double darkness. So let's say Johan as Anna. Okay. We'll just go with that. Yep. We'll go with that. Why not? Why not? So, okay. So we know that they have been following Tinma to Prague. I am sure that is what is happening. They are following Tinma to Prague because they suspect that maybe Tinma's found something out. Now, again, the question about the mom is why now? That's the big question, because Tinma's trying to find Johan's mom as per Schubert's clues. My big question in this is, like, if Johan's been able to go to Prague this entire time and be in disguises and all this shit, why hasn't he done this before? If he wanted to kill his mom, why isn't he... Maybe he doesn't want to kill his mom. But if he's wanted to find her, why is he waiting until Tinma goes and does it? Why didn't he go do it himself? He clearly is resourceful. What's the deal? So we still don't know why now. Maybe because all of these factors are finally adding up and he's figured out that there's some dirt on him, but I don't know. So he's been following Tinma to Prague, right? And he's been disguising himself as Anna. So for all we know, the real, God, this entire series makes you question the reality of who is who, what's in a name, who is what person. I'm like questioning everything now. You know, the real Nina, as far as we know, is with Dieter, and they were going to find Tinma, but the question is, did they go to Prague as well? I don't know. I don't think they would have, because Dieter would need a passport to get across the border, and I don't think they would have secured that for him. So I don't think they've gone to Prague. I don't think Tinma wants to stay in Prague. He just wants to find out about the mom and then go back to Germany. So I don't know if that's going to be a thing. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I'm going to say right now, no, they're still in Germany, waiting to find out a lead on Tinma. And we know that Rudy and Reichwein are still doing research of their own. So at least there's that. The one nice thing about this story is that when you leave for a long period of time and you're off doing other things, there's the nice thing about an ensemble cast is that you can do these other things with other characters like Grimmer and Suk and everything. And then meanwhile, you can say as a creator, as a writer, you can be like, well, while they're doing this, these guys were doing this. It was just off screen. And it's believable because, yeah, you've just not been around to see what's been happening. So there's that. Then there's the whole thing with Lunge. And all I can think about seeing Johan be Anna is I'm like, if Lunge finds out that Johan is cross-dressing as a woman, then he's going to probably think that there is no Nina. It's just Johan's been... Is he going to think Tinma's been Anna too? How far is it going to go? If Lunge is thinking that Tinma and Johan are the same person, when he finds out that Johan is actually also dressing up as a woman named Anna, is Lunge going to stand like in the mirror and go, I am Anna? Like, is he going to just like accept that she is also one of Tinma's personas? You know? What is he going to think about that? Is he going to even think that Nina's real? Or is he going to think Nina is a persona of Johan? That's going to be interesting, is will Lunge find out? I don't know. I think at this point, it is clear to say that at this point, Johan is very much not afraid to do anything to get info or what they want. Because, yeah, I mean, it's going pretty far to imitate a woman to, you know, be a femme fatale and get information. I mean, that... Poor Suk. No wonder Johan was like, no. Although Suk might be Johan's type. We don't know. I'm just saying. I'm not afraid to do anything to get information and get what they want. But it's like, what do you want at this point? I mean, clearly we know that Johan wants to delete any traces of himself. He wants to delete himself from existence. So obviously finding the safe deposit box would be something that he would want, right? But again, why not go before? Why now? Why is it important to erase your steps now? What's the deal, right? So Grimmer, let me go back here. Grimmer had the key. And the key goes to the box. And inside the box is the tape about Johan, right? This is the big thing that everybody wants because they think that that's going to give them info about Johan that they need. Right? So he's given the key to Suk. Meanwhile, Suk has told Johan / Anna about the key. And also about Grimmer, which does not bode well. I don't like that. I don't like Johan knowing about Grimmer. I don't like that at all. I don't know what that will lead. I don't like it. Nope, don't like it at all. Not a fan. So do I think that Johan cares about Grimmer? No, but I think that Johan is maybe wary of Grimmer. Although Suk has told Johan that Grimmer is not a criminal and is not corrupt. Not like Zeman and not like the other police chiefs, right? Johan definitely seems to have a thing where if he knows that you're corrupt, but it's a weird line, right? Because on the one hand, Johan, once he hears somebody's corrupt, it's almost like he's like a freedom fighter and he's like, well, we're going to kill all these corrupt detectives and these corrupt doctors. But then on the other hand, he uses criminals all the time. So I'm like, there is no consistency. It's like, maybe he thinks that you're worthy to live. Maybe he doesn't. But then again, also it depends on your usefulness. So if he thinks he can use you, he may leave you alive. But if he thinks he can't use you, then get out of the picture. And the detectives were clearly people he couldn't use, except for Suk. He knows he can use Suk. He knows he's got Suk in the palm of his hand, eating out of it. You know, he can do whatever he wants with Suk, and Suk ain't going to stop him. But my thing is, I think that Grimmer got rid of the key because I think Grimmer is on to Johan. Grimmer seems to be pretty smart. And I think Grimmer figured out that somebody is connected with Suk, and he's like, oh, no, I distanced myself. So part of me thinks that he's relying on Suk to do the dirty work for him. Either to go and get what's in the deposit box for him and bring it to him, or to go get what's in the deposit box and meet up with Johan, and that's when Grimmer's going to sneak up and try to snag it from both of them. Maybe. I've been wrong in this series many times, so who knows? But I am glad that Grimmer got rid of the key because that was clearly a liability, and it was clearly something that I'm glad he got away from the children because he's like, nope, don't want to bother the kids. It does say something that Johan did not kill Anna and Petrov while the kids were there. I do want to make note of that. There is one benefit I will give Johan, and that's it, that he didn't kill both of them directly in front of the children. Now, he didn't instantly kill Petrov, but I feel like Johan wanted to get Petrov to tell somebody, whether it was Grimmer or whoever else, about the deposit box, because otherwise Johan wouldn't be able to find it. So, whatnot. Now, the question is, what is Suk? I thought Suk was going to give the key to Johan this episode. I really thought he was going to give it to Anna. I was like, oh, he's going to give it to Anna. There we go. That's going to be... when we thought it was Nina, I was rooting for him because I was like, oh yeah. I was like, Suk, just give the key to Nina. She'll go unlock the safe deposit box and get the tape out. And we can, as the audience, find out what it says about Johan. And the moment we find out it's Johan as Anna, it's like, nope, don't give him the key. Stop. Don't. You quickly change your mind about it, right? Oh my gosh. I want to go through this episode. This episode was so good. This episode was so good. Like, it was a little sloggy at first. I had a little bit of recap. But then, man, the whiskey bonbons. I mean, again, you talk about you kind of get in denial because you just don't think that it's Johan. And this series has built up the idea that they look so similar that you just don't think about it. And the hair is a little different color. Didn't think about the wig. Didn't think about the makeup. And honestly, the only thing that was off was the actions in this episode. Like when Anna laughs at Suk pretending to be the cop and being like, bang, and she's like, I don't think Anna would have laughed like that. I don't think the real Nina would have laughed like that. I think she would have just been like, what the heck? And like kind of chuckled maybe. But the over-the-top laugh, I was like, okay. I was like, I guess you're playing the part. Which he is, right? But I thought Nina was playing the femme fatale. And I'm like, okay, all right. And then the moment that Nina starts walking back in the shadows, I was like, ooh, are we gonna get... I was waiting at the end of the episode to see why Nina was acting the way that she was. And I was expecting her to, like, go back to the apartment and Dieter would be there. But no, the moment Dieter wasn't there, I was like, wait a minute. And we're gonna go back and look at all the pictures and stuff on the wall. And then the moment the wig came off, I was like, oh, it was over. Done. Completely gagged. It was like the best wig reveal ever. The best wig reveal in Drag Race history was Johan as Anna Liebert. Oh my God. But yeah, and then the smile. You can talk to me if you want to. Yeah, so much of these were Johan mannerisms. And I thought that the show was just doing this narrative parallel of Nina to Johan, but nope, it was just Johan all over again. Johan 2.0. Let's get past this OP. Dear God. My question is, why did they have Suk out there to begin with for the press conference? I think everybody on the police force knows Suk's mannerisms and Suk's personality. He's the last person you would want for a press conference. He's like Carl Naughton Jr. from Talladega Nights, where he's like, I don't know. He's like Ricky Bobby. He's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, Suk is not someone you want to give a press release. He is not emotionally competent enough to just, like, he told Johan everything about the secret police and everything. Like, and that says something too about brainwashing and manipulation. He was with Kinderheim 511 and they were brainwashing and doing personality control, teaching Johan how to be the best at gathering out information. You just leech it out of him with your softness. I mean, it's classic, and he does it so well in this. But yeah, so we get out of here, and then the one guy finally comes into view, and he's like, no, let's not talk about this. Double darkness. I am floored. I like this lady at the nursery. I like her. I like the strawberry curtains are gaudy as hell, but I like her. She's because she's trying to protect the kids. I was very afraid when the boys went to the different nurseries. Now, we haven't seen what the other one's like, but I was afraid when they went to the foster homes that we would see the kids getting mistreated in comparison to how they were with Petrov and Anna. But this woman here, she's like, look, these kids have had nightmares. They've been interviewed already. They've had nightmares. They've been traumatized. Don't make them relive that. She's like, we need them to forget all these bad things. She's like, even though it's not likely, let's try our best. I like her. She's solid as a rock. She's a good character. I like it. And she's like, think of the boys. I love that. She's like, think of the boys. I just freaking love that line. He was like a parent to them, and the female assistant died before their eyes. I want them to forget about it as soon as possible. But it's like to be something that they'll never forget, even in a whole lifetime. Yeah, you're a young kid and you see something that traumatic, you're probably not going to forget it. Nope. But she's trying her best, and I do like that the drawings on the wall and stuff, that everything is trying to be as normal as it can be, and those boys, they don't seem as shaken as I thought they were going to seem. They're in decent spirits, right? And I think that Grimmer's presence and Antonin, like, leading them, I think helps out a lot. I'm like, keep Johan away from these kids. Don't let him near 500 feet of these children. They're doing okay. Someone they loved with all their heart was killed. And I think that relates a lot to Nina, like the actual Nina, because she's like still driven and compassionate, but she has to deal with the fact that, her foster parents that she loved dearly were killed, and that she has to deal with that burden. So she gives them 15 minutes. Don't ask questions too raw for them. I was noting the little tiny truck that's in the back behind the boys looks like the little truck that like picked up Tenma at the beginning of the series and he was hitchhiking with. Looked at that. That was pretty cool. The drawings, are there any things with drawings on the wall? I mean, there's somebody with pink hair and a bow. There's like just people with scribbles. There are 3 little cutout paper people. There's sets of 3 there, which is interesting. 3 frogs, 3 people. It's interesting indeed. And yeah, they talk about Grimmer and how fun he was. The one kid knew an awful lot. He knew about experiments and Kinderheim and education. He knew all the phrases being thrown around. And back in that episode, 41, when they were talking to each other, it didn't strike me that they were speaking in German and they weren't speaking Czech. It didn't strike me that was a different language barrier, because when it's all in Japanese, you can't tell. But I was like, oh, okay. And so the kids could understand some German and they could pick up on it. It didn't hit me at the moment that was even a thing that was happening. So that's a really cool notion to include in there. And I like that the woman's there the whole time being like, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it. Like, bless her. She's looking out for them kids. It's great. And so then they like bring the other kids over here, and then Antonin is the one who's the most resilient in his interviewing. The other kids seem younger and they're more bright-eyed, and they're like, yeah, this is this. Antonin, you can tell, took the death a lot harder, and he's a little bit older, so it seems like his maturity's kicked in a lot. And he just, the fact that Grimmer's made him the leader, you can tell has kind of affected him. Maybe not in a bad way, but he's feeling a little bit more pressure from it. And I like that he's very consistently saying, like, are you gonna arrest him? Please don't arrest him. Don't do it, right? Don't want you to arrest it. I wonder what that weird drawing behind him was, but it's a soccer ball. It's like, He's like, he's a good person. When we came back, they were dead. And he's like, are you gonna arrest him? And then he says that we've decided to see him. And we're gonna meet up together. And yeah, and so that's when Suk tries to help them all organize the meeting to see Grimmer again. I'm glad to see Grimmer. It's been too long. He was gone one episode and I missed him already. And his injuries have healed up. He's got the bandages. He just keeps getting more and more bandages on his face. And he's just so... Grimmer's such a good person. He's so... The smile he has, like the brightness in his eyes. And like with the kids... Like, especially with kids. He's so good with little kids. And you can tell that he loved his son. And he's, like, just exuding that compassion to them the same way he would exude it with his own child. And it kills you because even though we don't know what happened, it's like, even though we don't know what happened, we already know that something really bad happened to his kid. It really impacted him. And he's not telling us about it because... It's like, it just makes it all, it's kind of like a show not tell moment where he doesn't have to tell you exactly what happened. You know it was bad. And you probably know his reaction to it. So you don't need to know. You just need to know that this is how he's responding to it. I also thought it was interesting about Grimmer. The idea of, we'll put Grimmer up here because we're about to talk about him. The idea about wetting the bed, right? The idea about wetting the bed. That connects back to Tenma. Because when Tenma was hiding, was it episode 37 or 38? That feels like a lifetime ago, and it wasn't that long ago. So there you go. But yeah, Tenma was talking about when he was hiding. When he was hiding, he would get scared, and he would wet the bed. And he would basically pee on himself. And so Grimmer says, I wet the bed much more than you. And he says it like just so nonchalantly. And you don't know if it's true or not, or if he's just saying to make the kids like laugh and feel, better about the other kid, like make fun of Grimmer. Grimmer likes to direct the bullying to himself to take it away from someone else. And that's kind of like he takes the pain to direct it away from somebody else, which is so interesting, right? It's very self-sacrificial. And the other kids are like, oh, you wet the bed even more? No way. Wah, wah, wah. And then they try, and he's like, do you have what I left you? And then they get real serious, and he's like, thank you. You did a good job holding on to it. It's something important that I got from your grandpa. And they all turn very serious. Like, they know that Grimmer was looking out for their grandpa, which is so good. Man, I love that tone shift, right? Like, here you go. And he's like, I gotta go. I'm out of time. Oh, and I didn't want him to leave. He's like, take care, all of you. And he's like, let's play soccer one more time. And he's like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, maybe for a little bit. He can't resist. But he also knows that Suk is waiting on him. So he knew very much that guy was coming there. I love Grimmer also is kind of klutzy too. So funny. And he's like, oh man, I've hurt myself. And also he's probably like, damn, I'm still sore. So me falling on the ground this once was not a good thing. And then, again, this series is so masterful with using darkness and light and shadows versus sunlight and showing both Suk and Grimmer in the darkness. You could say that that's the double darkness, but could also refer to Johan as well. But yeah. But the idea that they're on the hill together and he asks if they've come to arrest him. And I like that Suk goes for his gun and he's like, not in front of the children. I love that Grimmer's like, let's not make this violent in front of the kids, shall we? And what's very interesting is what he says next. When he says that I have never carried a gun. That part's interesting because that makes me think a couple of different things. When he says, you throw me your gun, he says, I'm not carrying one. And he says, did you toss it? He says, I've never carried a gun before. So when Dimmish said he shot a man and Grimmer sounded like he could relate, it wasn't that Grimmer was relating to shooting someone. It's that Grimmer was relating to killing someone. So, and as we've seen, Grimmer's a big, tall guy. As we've seen in the last episode, he could strangle and beat a person to death with his hands. So there's no telling. Like, Grimmer could know martial arts. He could know just hand-to-hand combat. He could just become the Magnificent Steiner and kill everybody. We don't know. But he's never carried a gun before. So never carrying it before also doesn't mean never shot one, though, before. He says he's never carried a gun. He still could have shot one or used a gun, but it wasn't his own. So that begs the question, was Grimmer partially responsible for his son's death? We don't know. Was he responsible for the circumstances? Did he kill the person that killed his son? We don't. There's a lot of things we don't know, but I'm going to be honest. I don't want to know Grimmer backstory anytime soon. I don't, because that usually means they're going to die, and I don't want that to happen. So if we have to wait till the end of the series to find out all these answers about Grimmer, I'm fine with that. Let us wait. As long as we can keep him around, I'm cool with that. Fine by me. Yep. And so that's whenever Suk sits down. And again, Grimmer has a constant smile on his face the entire time, hiding any real emotion that he has. Because when he holds his hand up, he's like, look, I was being tortured to death. And he was smiling as he says it, but his nails are like clearly clipped off. He's like, I was being tortured to death. How could I have done it? And he still even has like, there's still traces of blood on his hands. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, I didn't shoot the man with the gun, but I might have killed the others. I don't know. And the kids, he's like, do you think I'm a criminal? I don't know anymore. I don't know what to believe. That is the big thing with this story, is the more we find out about how layered and complex everyone is in this story, the more difficult it becomes to discern, like, what makes you a criminal? Because all of our main characters at this point have shot at or killed someone. At least shot at them. Even Nina did that. And with Mueller even. Not even during the fire. So it's funny because it makes you question, like, well, how do we define a criminal? What makes you good versus bad, right? Is it just the act itself? Is it the act? Is it the intent? Is it both? Is it complacency? You know, we've talked about that and being complicit, like with Johan. I mean, what defines good and bad? Is it the fact that you shoot someone or don't shoot someone? Is it pacifism? Is it activism? There's so many things called into question. And humans, as the story reveals, are very complex creatures that are capable of many things. And like Grimmer says, you know, just because you commit one bad act doesn't make you a bad person. But where do we draw the line? Because you could say by that, right, well, Johan's done some bad things, but he's not a bad person. And then what do we do with that, right? If he's not a bad person, where do we go? That kind of defeats the whole purpose of Tenma doing what he's doing. So, yeah. And he says, I don't know what to believe. And that's when he says, in the end, the only one you can trust is yourself. The last thing you can believe in is yourself. I don't think that seems like it's not right, though. That seems kind of contradictory, right? And I've been told that some of these subtitles are wrong. So I'm going to be curious if that's a mess up in the subtitles. Because he says in the end, the last thing you can believe in is yourself. I think that means the only person you can believe in yourself. So the only one you can believe in is yourself. Yeah, that's what he's saying. The only one you can believe in is yourself. You cannot rely upon anyone else. Which kind of goes back to the story of the monster. The monster didn't have a name, and they kept wanting to have a name and being called something else. And in the end, they just ended up isolated because they basically drove off everyone else. And Grimmer's kind of saying like the antithesis of becoming something else. It's like, no, just be yourself. That's the only thing you can trust and have faith in, is what you do and who you are. Which is what he tried to tell Timma while he was in his sad state. And he asks if he's going to arrest him, and he's like, I'm not going to run away. And then he says, I'm at Pavla Hotel room 302. Now, is he actually at Pavla Hotel room 302, or is that a trap? I don't know. If you can confirm I'm a criminal, come whenever you like. And then he gives him the key. He says, I'll let you hold on to that. It's the cause of this series of events. It's the key to a safe deposit box. Yeah! Grimmer's like, yeah, come back to the hotel and find me if you want to. But also, yeah, here's the key. I'm not holding on to this. I'm not going to be the one getting killed over it. So we have the three frogs. And we learn about that. And that it is a sign from 200 years ago. Just the creepiest thing. The three frogs. So it's a sign for a bar from over 200 years ago. And it says the bar is gone, but the sign still remains. Creepy, right? Yep, so the bar is gone. Not a meetup place anymore. Just a sign. It's a landmark. Okay. Well, that's good. So Timma's definitely not been meeting Nina at the bar. That's for sure. Nope. Yeah, even though the bar's gone. I wonder if Johan could fool Timma in that getup. I'm a little nervous now, if I'm honest. If he could fool Timma in that getup, I'm a little nervous if he finds out that Timma and Nina know each other and have been working together, if he's going to try to dress up as her to fool Timma. That has me really nervous. I don't know how to feel about that. And so he said, the color's fading, but it's a landmark on this street. Many misfortunes must have befallen this place. Well, that's nice. He says there was even a fire and it survived it some umpteen years ago. Yeah, so a woman with a child moved into the second floor. Okay, so a woman and child moved onto the second floor. Now, that's interesting. I think that it's kind of what Tenma suggests, and that she was just passing it off like if it was one kid, but it was two. She was beautiful and seemed pretty gloomy. She didn't come out much, and she used a fake name. One day, a black car came out of the blue and took... She said, one day a car came... What is it? And took her and the child away. There are rumors she was involved... What does it say here? My video keeps messing up. So she seemed gloomy, like she wasn't in good spirits, and a black car came and took the woman and child away. And said that there were rumors she was involved in some anti-government activities. Well, that would surprise nobody. So she was involved in some anti-government stuff. And a black car, which is probably some secret police, took her and the kid away. And we believe that one kid stayed behind and started the fire. Okay. So she was involved in perhaps some illegal activities. Her and the child were taken. And the guy says that people disappeared a lot back in those days. A lot of people were involved in some anti-government stuff back then. And the politics of fear... What was it? What did he just say? He said there was politics of fear. Let's see. It was a horrible age. Back when communism was coming to an end. So he said people disappeared a lot back then. So it wasn't anything uncommon for people to just up and vanish and not get looked for because it was so commonplace. And so Tim was like, well, were they twins with her? And he's like, I only ever recall one child. And they couldn't remember if it was a boy or a girl, which should have been foreshadowing of Johan imitating Anna, right? But what do we know? And so then he says, when they're young, you can't really tell sometimes. Everyone said, I can't believe they'd take away a mother, let alone an innocent child away. So then it says that, and then the place caught on fire. And a fire started when you think there would be no one there, but that child was in there. And so Tim was like, wait. And he's like, they must have released the child alone. But no, that's not the case. They must have been hungry and tried to light a fire in order to make some food. No, I don't think that's the case either. And he says that child was. He's like, well, they were rescued from the fire. They lost their whereabouts. So they disappeared. Okay. So mysteriously, the mom vanished. The kid vanished. And then they vanished again. And then there was a fire. Yeah, I think that the one kid was left behind to start the fire and destroyed any trace of whatever was still in the apartment. I think that was the case. Now, whether that was the mom and kid's plan to have that happen, or the kid just did it to cover their tracks and then left, the question is which kid went with the mom and which kid started the fire. I could see Nina having started the fire. It would be fun as a twist if Johan started the fire in the library and Nina started the fire back at the apartment. But we don't know where the kids went. So Johan could have been left behind. Johan could have been left behind and he started the fire. So if that's the case, it brings up this whole host of questions of, with the mom, if she was involved in anti-government activities, like what was going on with the kids, how involved were they in all of this? Was she just trying to keep them safe? It also brings to mind that if, is this like a nature versus nurture? Has Johan always been this way? Like starting the fire if it was him and whatnot. And we just don't know. We don't know if the black car, where it led the woman and the child and what the end result was. We know that both Nina and Johan got out together. So they must have met up at some point. And we don't know where the mom is. So there's that. That's weird. So yeah, there's that going on. And he's like, I don't know. What if one was left alone in the apartment? Why are you so sure they were twins? And so then we cut back to the bar. We cut back to the bar where they've been sitting at. And he says, the person you told me to check out, Mr. Grimmer. Yeah, so Johan wanted to know about Mr. Grimmer. Wanted to find, which all that makes much more sense now. Because I'm like, why would Nina care? He's like, why? You asked me to tell him to check him out. I don't think he's a criminal. And he's like, I see. I'm sorry, Mr. Suk. I wanted to help and ended up saying something irresponsible. Yeah, it sounds so much like Johan now. He's not a bad person, but I learned many things while chasing him. It's like, I was eager to avenge the death of Inspector Zeman. And then, yeah. I like the bartender. Like, the bartender focus is interesting. Like, I wonder if the bartender realizes that Johan's a man and doesn't say anything because they're like, oh, I want to see how this goes down. But also, the fact that Suk tells Johan everything. Like everything. The secret investigation nobody's supposed to know about. Like I learned this man I respected as a detective, he was really corrupt. And in the end, the two of my seniors, that they were part of the secret police. How far the world of darkness expands into this world. And then Johan's like, darkness? I love that Johan's like, what do you mean darkness? They're like, the Chekhov police are the ones pulling the strings behind the recent events. They were the organization under direct control of the former Ministry of Affairs, the Iron Fist of the Soviet Union. 10 years ago, during the Democratic Revolution, they were dissolved, and the officers were put on trial. Like, he just spills the beans on everything. Many of them went underground. They're plotting to regain the great power they once had. That's all I know. Why must there be so many sacrifices? Are the secret police really the ones behind this? I wonder how much darkness is spreading in the world that we live in. Interesting, and I wanted to see the response. I can't believe anything anymore. But then Grimmer said this to me, in the end, the only one you can trust is yourself. Yeah, that was the last line. The only one you can trust in the end is yourself. And he gave me something. And then Nina's like, what did he give you? And then he's like, oh, I've only been talking about this one thing. Never mind. I don't even know your real name. And I was like, oh. Now the question is, does Johan like Suk at all? We suspect they're just using him, but I was really hoping that Johan kind of likes Suk, but I don't think that's the case. I'm like, ugh. But yeah, it's curious that Johan hears about the darkness that he's talking about and doesn't really formulate a response to it. So, which is frustrating. But I think if he had responded, we would have known it was Johan a lot sooner. I think it would have clicked a lot quicker. But no, he's like, oh, you don't have to tell me. I'll figure it out. Between people who didn't know each other's name and personal background. And I like that Johan gives him a smile, like, yeah, we don't know each other's names, but we can trust one another, right? Right? And then they like go out on the street together. And then the moment that Johan was behind Suk the entire time, I was afraid that like they were gonna pull a gun on him or do something. It was just very, very creepy. And Suk said that he talks about his parents separating. That my parents were teachers, but I wanted to be a detective. My mom opposed it. And he's like, I've always been a fan of cop dramas. And he does the whole bang thing, right? And that's when Johan has the reaction, being like, oh, isn't that funny, you sweet summer child? Which is not a very Nina reaction. It should have been obvious, but I was like, at that point, I didn't realize Johan was Nina, and I thought Nina was just acting so bizarre. Nope. And then we see the couple making out, and Suk is like, oh no, and like walks away. What did he give you? I mean, the other thing is, Nina is the same height as Suk, but you can't ever tell anime heights in this. We've not really seen Nina next to, and Johan's not incredibly tall, so we've not really seen anything that forms a comparison. And he says a safe deposit box. He's like, yeah. And then he reveals exactly what was in it. Inside the box, there's some data from the human experiments that he ran. It's the cause of this series of events. And then, yeah, Johan says you can't tell him. You can't talk to the police or anyone. And he's like, your mother, do you know what your mother didn't approve of you being a cop? Because something could happen to you. I just had a bad feeling about it. Yeah. And at the time, you were like, oh, well, yeah. Nina wouldn't want him to tell the cops about the safe deposit box because they may confiscate it and then nobody may find out about the tapes or what's in it. So, of course, Nina wouldn't want the police who have corruption from within to know about the deposit box. But it also makes sense Johan doesn't want them to know either. So that's why he's very adamant that he doesn't tell. You shouldn't trust. I have the same feeling as your mother. And then he moves in to like kiss her. I think Suk was like gonna kiss her instead of give her the key. And Johan's like, whoa, no. Like, you're not my type. Your hair is not black. Like, what? I'm sorry. And it says, I'll tell you my name. It's Anna Liebert. And then she runs away. Yep. And then into the darkness. And just the face. Anna's face just contemplating in the darkness what's going on. And you see the shadow of the monster. And at this point I was like, well, we're going to find something out. And we see the woman, the sleepy woman there. On this time, yep, Anna. Everything, like all the angles, the darkness, it all points to Johan. But I was still so convinced it was Nina. I was like, we're going to find something about Nina out. Like, where's she been staying? Is Nina there? So I want to look at this room, right? I want to look at this room that they're in. Because they're in this room. There are pictures of, like, some boys on the wall. There's a picture of like a woman with a man and like 3 kids. There is like a picture of a woman and all these boys on there. There's a picture on the wall of like people graduating and like 3 cowboys and like all of these things. There's pictures everywhere of all these different people that I have no clue who they are. Yeah. And then you see like the bed and everything. My thing is this just somebody's random apartment and Johan killed them and just took it over as his own and he just hasn't touched anything because he doesn't want to leave any trace? I mean, the thing about it is, I feel like if Lunge investigated this apartment with all the makeup and stuff, he would definitely have something to type about. But, and then we have all of the bottles and everything. And then the nails, the thing, and looking in the mirror. Oh my God. The moment the wig came off. Oh, Was that a lace front? Oh my God. And then, yeah, just wiped off the makeup and everything. Oh my God. And then smiles in the damn mirror. And instantly they look more masculine, like with their back turned. Oh my God. Shut up. Shut up. And then looks in the mirror saying, so a safe deposit box key. Oh my God. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yep. I can't believe it's been Johan this entire time. I cannot believe it was Johan this entire time. Well, I feel better now. I feel better that Nina hasn't just had lobotomy and has completely changed personalities. It's so fascinating because seeing Johan play as Nina is like, it really reinforces how different their characters are, because even though everybody compares them all the time in the series saying they look so similarly, they act so different. So seeing Johan imitate Anna, it's like you kind of are thrown off. You're like, this isn't how she acts. Because no, it's Johan. Oh my God. I think I've lost my voice. In any case, I'm floored. I'm going to wait till I get some comments. Don't worry. For this next go round. But then, yeah, I'm going to watch episode 45. There's no way. How could you not? How could you not? I'm so excited, and I hope you all are too, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. I cannot wait to talk about next week with episode 45 of Monster.